McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. Tender, juicy, and its own sauce. Would you look at that? Well, you can't see it, but trust me, it looks delicious. New McCrispy strips, now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 178 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing well. We got a lot of stuff going on this weekend, man.
Yeah, busy.
A lot of episodes coming out. We dropped a brand new Patreon-only episode on Saturday.
I did.
That was on Charles Harrelson, the father of actor Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, it's an interesting case.
It's an interesting case that I thought was a little bit smaller than what it actually is. I mean, there's a lot to Charles Harrelson.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah. Number of trials, gets off. I mean, just the fact that, this guy's kind of a hitman and his son turns out to be this famous actor. And then we have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time. We're talking about Kevin Coe, the South Hill rapist. This is a brutal guy. His crimes are shockingly brutal.
He really asked some really bizarre questions to his victims.
As he was victimizing them. But the numbers here could be staggering, right? Kevin Coe, many people believe, is in the territory of the East Area Rapist, Joseph D'Angelo, as far as, having victims numbering in 50 plus. We continue to see some great Patreon support, so let's give some shout outs. We had Melanie Champlin.
Hey, Melanie.
Sophia.
Sophia.
Taya Gonique McLaughlin.
What's going on, Taya Gonique?
McLaughlin.
I believe you.
I'm going to say a couple different ways. Cover my bases.
Yeah.
Courtney Lynn.
Hey, Courtney.
Rachel.
What's going on, Rachel?
Charisse Gamble.
Hey, thank you, Charisse.
Hazel Bissett.
What's going on, Bissett?
H. Lang.
What's happening, H?
Terry Reese.
Hey, Terry.
Carrie Gates.
Thank you, Carrie.
Catherine Stevenson.
What's going on, Catherine?
Rosemary Chosler.
Chosler.
Demetrius Anderson.
Hey, thanks, Demetrius.
Tahina Crawford.
What's happening, Tahina?
Sharon Aristi.
Well, thank you, Aristi.
Troy B43.
What's up, B43?
Libertarian Lush.
Hey, thank you, Lush.
Valerie Irons.
Hi, Valerie.
Nick and Jeanette Meters.
Hey, NNJ.
M. Beef.
What's happening, M. Beef?
David Lang.
Appreciate that, David.
And last but not least, Robin Medlock.
Hey, Medlock.
We appreciate that new support. And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
All right.
This week we selected Rhonda Leitner.
Thank you, Rhonda.
So we appreciate that type of long-term support. Rhonda's been with us a long time. We had some great PayPal donations as well. Mary Ashley.
Hey, thanks, Mary.
Angie Stevenson.
Thanks, Angie.
Marion Kahn.
That's amazing, Mary.
And Jennifer Warmuth.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So thank all of you as well. All right, Gibbs, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am.
We're talking about the disappearances and murders of Tammy Call and Pamela Miller down in Leesville, Louisiana. But to start the episode off, we have to talk about another victim. It's critical to start with the disappearance and murder of a woman named Karen Hill, because investigators believe that there's a link between Karen Hill and Tammy Call and Pamela Miller. On Monday, November 21st, 1988, the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office received an emergency phone call at 4:25 a.m. The caller was at a Circle K convenience store near the Fort Polk Army military base. He told them the store was unattended and he thought the whole situation was suspicious. Once deputies were on site, they saw that the place had been robbed. The cash register was empty, but they didn't find any evidence of a struggle. Deputies learned that the clerk that should have been working was 21-year-old Karen Hill, and she was scheduled to have been in the store alone from 3 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. Sheriff's deputies began searching for Karen Hill in and around the area. They soon learned that she was married to a Fort Polk sergeant.
It is a very large military base there, so not surprised.
That a large part of the population would be employed.
Right.
Either directly in the military or as contractors at Fort Polk. I mean, I think it's similar, right? We have a fairly large Air Force base near where we live. Later that morning, around 8:30 a.m., some local hunters found Karen's dead body. Her hands were tied around a tree with shoelaces, and she had been shot through her left eye. The area where she was found was about 11 miles from the Circle K in some woods by a small lake just off of Louisiana Highway 10. She was still fully clothed, and she didn't appear to have been sexually assaulted. As the sheriff's office began their investigation, they found out that Karen spoke to one of her friends at 3 a.m. for several minutes. Her friend was due to give birth later that morning. Around 3:20 a.m., a deputy stopped in to get a cup of coffee. And then the newspaper delivery guy was the next person known to have entered the store. He's the person that made the 4:25 a.m. call to the sheriff's office.
So that gives us that window of opportunity, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think from that, they would have narrowed it down to about an hour, right? An hour and 5 minutes to be exact, or somewhere around there. But right around an hour, from 3:20 to 4:20, 4:25. Karen was not scheduled to work that night, but she picked up the extra shift. Now, normally the store always had 2 employees working, but not this night.
Which we hear this a lot in some of these cases, right? The victim wasn't never supposed to be there. They took an extra shift, and it turned out to be bad for them. Or there normally is somebody additional in the store, but in this case, there wasn't, which made it easier for the killer to take her.
Now, one thing that really hampered the investigation was that this particular store didn't have any security cameras. So, that makes it tough on investigators.
Kind of shocking, really. But
it is shocking, to be honest with you, because, I, at one time in my life, worked in this arena.
Right.
I managed some gas stations, and they were real big on security cameras.
Yeah.
Because, well, number one, you have people that pump and go.
Yeah.
In the old, back then. Now it's harder today because they make you pay up front with credit cards. But also for the safety of the employees working inside. And on the third shift, we normally only had one person. So very important to, have security measures in place. And
Sure.
Part of that is having a good security system. And you would think, Gibbs, with a big name like Circle K, you would have had that.
Maybe that's why they had 2 people that were supposed to be working.
Maybe you would still think they would have had cameras. Now, I don't know if this was corporate owned, private owned. We don't know that part.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And that could make a difference. The medical examiner's preliminary report suggested that Karen had been shot with either a 22 or a 25 caliber handgun. It also came back and said that she had been sexually assaulted. Some evidence from the murder site was sent to the FBI crime lab in Washington, D.C., and Crime Stoppers offered a $5,000 reward.
Which was a pretty good size reward back in 88.
No, it's not bad. I mean, I think you're right at that area where people would come forward for $5,000. Obviously, the higher you go, the greater the chance that someone's willing to come forward.
Sure.
But on December 4th, a 25-year-old man from California named Cedric Burton came forward and told police that he had killed the clerk at the Circle K that morning. But investigators quickly figured out that he was lying. He was actually a suspect in another murder that took place in a different state. He was trying to admit to Karen Hill's murder to get out of the murder of car salesman Michael Langton.
We've heard this before in some other cases where they do this because they feel like if they plead to this one, they're going to get a lesser sentence or not get the death penalty or whatever, because they're not going to be accused of the other one. Because how can I have done that one if I was here killing this person?
Yeah, it happens every now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have obviously thought that there was no way he was going to beat this murder rap in the Michael Langton case.
Right.
Or I guess if someone's not that bright, they could think that, okay, I'll say that I killed this person. Eventually they're going to figure out it couldn't have been me, and then the other people will leave me alone. I don't think that would ever happen, but I guess some people could have that thought and mistakenly think that by doing that, it's going to get them out of the other one.
Well, I think you're right. I think there's definitely some dumb criminals out there.
Now, could a defense attorney make a reasonable doubt argument that how can my client be wanted in two different murders? And could it get just cloudy enough that maybe a jury decides that they can't convict because, okay, maybe he could have been in this state and killed this person. I don't know. There's a lot of angles. I don't think most criminals are that smart to think that far ahead, but
I don't think so either. I mean, I wouldn't put it past a few though.
No, there are some that are. Let's not discount the intelligence of some criminals.
But really, after this false confession, Karen's case just goes cold.
On May 29th, 1989, 23-year-old Pamela Miller went missing. Pamela had just moved to Leesville, Louisiana from Pueblo, Colorado, sometime around December of the previous year. She moved in with her sister and took two separate jobs, one at the local Burger King and one at a place called Ford Cleaners.
Got to do what you got to do to make that money.
That might be the most profound thing you've ever said. I think it applies to everyone. You got to do what you got to do to make that money.
Exactly.
Now, can we add within legal means? Because I like that.
Well, probably the right thing to say.
Is the right thing to say. Not everybody takes that course. Some people go with that strict tenet of, I got to do whatever I got to do to make that money.
That's right.
So that gets them, sometimes down a dark path.
Get rich or die trying.
Yeah, some people subscribe to that one. On that day, May 29th, Pamela went to a local club called the Replay Club to see a comedian. She was seen leaving the club in her car around 11:30 p.m., wearing a mint green blouse, jeans, and black high heels. She was later seen around 11:45 at Lebo's convenience store on Kurthwood Road and Highway 8 using the payphone. Pamela's boyfriend, Billy Hunt, told investigators she probably was trying to call him. She was supposed to stop over at his place. Billy told the local paper that around 12:15 a.m., a car turned around in front of his driveway gate. He said shortly after 1 a.m., he left to take his female guest home, and he saw Pamela's car parked in front of the gate. So Gibbs, by his own admission, his girlfriend was supposed to stop by his place.
Yeah.
But he already had a female friend there.
He did.
So either he's trying to time it perfectly, or he's not too worried about the consequences.
Maybe that's why he had that gate. Yeah, I'm sure he probably wanted to get the other female home and be back before Pamela ever showed up. But
well, I'm sure he was surprised to see her car outside. What he said is that he pushed her car out of the way because he thought, okay, either someone she knew had followed her and she got in their car, or her car broke down at his gate and she walked off. both of those are somewhat strange to me. Not that they are not plausible. If her car broke down right in front of her boyfriend's house,
Right.
why wouldn't she just ring her boyfriend and say, hey, I ran out of gas.
Or punch the code in and go in.
Help
or
me,
whatever.
or yeah.
Yeah.
So Billy took his female friend home. Then he came back home. Car's still there. He got up the next morning. Pamela's car was still exactly in the spot where he had pushed it. Pamela's purse was on the front seat. It was determined later that her car was in working order. There was nothing wrong with it.
So it never broke down.
Vernon Parish Sheriff's investigators believe that when she got out of her car to press the code to the gate, someone grabbed her from behind and abducted her. Early on, Billy Hunt told the local paper, if Pamela is alive, then she is subdued someplace, or she has amnesia, or she is dead.
It's pretty blunt.
It is. I'm not saying he's wrong, but it's kind of a rough thing to say very early on after your girlfriend has gone missing.
Yeah, it really is.
The sheriff and other agencies began to search for Pamela. They questioned friends, family, and coworkers, but they really weren't able to develop any solid leads. Then on November 24th, 1989, so this is about 6 months later, a couple of hunters were in the woods off Peason Ridge. This was a federal military reservation and an artillery training range. The hunters came across a shallow grave near a creek bed. In that grave, they found some skeletal remains. The hunters contacted the Vernon Parish authorities. Eventually, the FBI was brought in. The FBI collected the remains and sent them to their lab in Washington, D.C., where a pathologist would eventually identify the victim. But while investigators were waiting for the identification, they brought in a backhoe. They dug up around the gravesite to try to find any clues that might lead to the victim's identity, clues that might lead to the victim's killer. Investigators were able to find more bone fragments, and they also found some clothing along with some jewelry. They found an earring, a ring, and a necklace. These items were found downstream because months earlier, the creek had flooded and it washed out this shallow grave, taking some items with it. It took about 3 weeks for the FBI to determine the victim's identity through dental records as Pamela Miller. But Pamela's cause of death could not be determined.
Isn't it strange how long it took to get an identification back then? I think today you probably get a little faster response because everything's so electronic. Your dental records, things like that.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think the part that I'm struggling with is, okay, how many missing persons did they have in this area at the time?
Right.
Would they not have known that, okay, Pamela Miller is missing, let's get her dental records right away?
And match them up as quick as possible.
And it doesn't seem like it would have taken that long. I get it if you have no idea where the victim is from.
Right.
Okay. Back in the late 80s, that would have been a big task to go out sweeping across the country for dental records. But you have a missing person in Pamela Miller. It seems like they would have gotten her dental records very early on.
So maybe part of the delay was when she moved. She just had not seen a new dentist yet, and they had to wait to get her dental records from Colorado.
And that's entirely possible. Again, I don't see how that would take 3 weeks. They know Pamela Miller is missing. They obviously would know who to reach out to in her family. It seems like it would have been pretty easy to figure out who her last dentist was, or you could have just gone to the dentist in Colorado regardless, because they would have had the records. Investigators determined that the Army had used the location where Pamela's body was found during March and April for training. And they felt that the suspect was most likely a service member who had some type of knowledge of this location, and that Pamela was not just randomly dumped there. The lead detective said somebody would had to have known where to go because she was actually driven down a road that crossed over a big water culvert, and she was dumped in a shallow grave in a creek bed. The detective also thought it was strange to bring the victim's body to this location, which was 18 miles away from where her car was found, unless you knew exactly where you were going. And I get that, Gibbs. No need to go 18 miles, right? You could have found probably a wooded area or something within that 18-mile stretch.
Oh, sure.
Much sooner. But to go 18 miles and to go to this location, I get the thinking that the killer was probably somebody that had some very specific knowledge of this location. They picked it for a reason.
Well, because they felt like no one would ever be able to find her body. And maybe if it wasn't for this rain in the rising water of the creek, maybe they never would have.
Yeah, you could be exactly right. The other thing that I thought, this is an artillery training range.
Yeah.
How many people are out just walking it? You know, I don't know how often they used it, but the killer may have thought this is a good place because there's not going to be a lot of foot traffic.
Right.
If they're firing off big artillery shells.
Yeah.
And didn't count on the fact that 2 hunters would be, walking through that area. Investigators interviewed a number of people, including Pamela's boyfriend. They didn't have a main suspect, but they did have a few persons of interest. There was one guy who was known to make Pamela extremely uncomfortable anytime he was around her, but investigators had nothing to link him to her murder. Just about 2 months after Pamela Miller's body was found, on February 20th, 1990, 15-year-old Tammy Call went missing. On that day, she said goodbye to her parents as she and her siblings took the bus to Leesville High School. According to Tammy's friend, once she got off the bus, the two of them had plans to skip school. So they snuck around to the side parking lot where the friend's boyfriend was parked, waiting for them. But one of the school administrators caught them and told them to get to class. Tammy walked into the building at 8 a.m. But strangely, she never showed up in any of her classes.
So I'm guessing maybe she went in the one door and snuck out another door.
That's possible. Tammy did not come home after school that day. And obviously her parents were worried. They waited, hoping to hear from her. But as the day went on, they finally called police and reported her missing that evening. The Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office started a missing persons investigation. They immediately searched the school and the surrounding area. They also interviewed several individuals, but really had just a few leads to go from. One of those leads was from a student who had been dropped off by his mother that morning. He said that he saw Tammy heading south down Highway 8 towards the Lebo's convenience store. The clerk working at Lebo's the day that Tammy went missing recalled seeing a girl matching Tammy's description on the payphone outside the store. The police, along with friends and family, canvassed the area for several weeks, trying to locate Tammy. Her dad used every waking moment to look for her in Leesville and even went into surrounding towns, just driving around.
Yeah. That's you right there, man.
Oh my gosh, dude. I don't even know if I'd be able to sleep. I feel like, and obviously you'd have to at some point, you'd just crash,
Right.
But I feel like I would be in my car driving, just driving.
Yeah.
At certain points, I'm not even sure if I would know where to go, but I would feel like at least I'm looking.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a lot of parents that would feel like that as well.
I'd be out there looking with you, man.
Tammy's mother took her disappearance especially hard. She wouldn't leave the house. She just stayed by the phone, waiting on any news, hoping to hear from Tammy. And I think for both mom and dad, in this scenario, you really get a sense of the desperation
Yeah.
And it's not just this case. It happens in every case of a missing child. But, I can just, for some reason, really feel it. I feel this dad driving around
Yes.
in Leesville, in the surrounding towns. I feel the mother not moving from that phone because at any moment, Gibbs, it's going to ring.
Exactly.
And I can't even be away. I can't be 3 feet away from it.
Yeah, I don't even want to take the chance that if she calls, I miss it, or somebody calls with information, I miss it. I can't take that risk.
Yeah, for some reason, I can just really get a good sense of what that must be like. I can't get it completely. I'm just getting a sense of it. On March 30th, just a little bit over a month after Tammy went missing, a student found her backpack in some high weeds and brush along a walking trail behind the school, leading to Bellevue Road. The sheriff's deputies didn't locate the backpack in their initial searches because they didn't think that she would have taken off in that direction when leaving school.
Yeah, that was a mistake there. I mean, I get why.
I get it too, but it also points out the issue, the problem with assuming
Right.
or making assumptions and not following certain avenues because you think they're unlikely.
Yeah.
So I get it. They can only do so much, but
Being that close to the school, I just...
that's what kind of hit me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this was 20 miles away from the school. But even locating the backpack didn't really assist investigators in helping to find Tammy. Police said that the only thing they found inside Tammy's backpack were several notes referring to her love for heavy metal. But they did mention that some of the notes had lyrics that revolved around suicide. So that had to have been a concern.
Sure. But then again, a lot of heavy metal songs back then.
Did
Yeah.
kind of delve into that topic. But investigators, they just really didn't have any promising leads. And Tammy's case went cold for the next 7 years. In January of 1997, skeletal remains were found by a hunter in the U.S. Forestry Woods, a secluded area off of West Boundary Road near Highway 10. I think pretty quickly, investigators believe that these remains were Tammy Call. The remains were sent to the LSU Anthropology Department, who confirmed the bones were from a female between the ages of 15 and 20.
Well, that confirms the age. So
Yeah, the age range is correct.
Right.
Then they were sent off to a pathology lab where DNA was extracted. Tammy's parents donated their DNA to assist in identifying the remains. But this was not a quick process. It took over 10 months and involved several independent DNA testing exams and dental reviews.
It's a really long time.
It's excruciatingly long for the parents. Remains are found. Okay. Many people believe it's Tammy.
Right.
You're donating DNA to help confirm it. And then you're sitting for 10 months
Yeah.
waiting to find out if that's your daughter or not. Ooh, no, that's rough.
But I get it. They have to make sure they're exactly.
That's absolutely right. You can't tell the parents something
Right.
unless you're 100% sure, or whatever that is, one out of however many trillion,
Yeah.
that the DNA is a match. Because the worst thing in the world would be to give the parents incorrect information either way.
Yeah. And
And
then
then-
come back and correct it.
Yes, and then have to come back and tell them, oh, we were wrong. This is the truth. On November 18th, 1997, the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office confirmed the bones found were Tammy Call. She had been murdered. They couldn't say for certain how she was murdered, but they did say that they had a person of interest. And not only did they say they had a person of interest in Tammy's case, they came out and said that this same person of interest may be involved with the murder of Pamela Miller as well. Because back on March 19th of that year, 1997, the Vernon Parish Sheriff issued an arrest warrant for a man named Samuel Galbraith, who was a soldier stationed at Fort Polk between December 1987 and June 1990. The arrest warrant was issued for the abduction, sexual assault, and murder of Karen Hill back in November of 1988. Investigators used advances in DNA evidence to match the evidence they had to Galbraith. Investigators also had a statement from a person who said they overheard Galbraith say that he had dreams and visions of committing a crime. He said that he dreamed of going into a convenience store, picking out a woman, abducting them, sexually assaulting them, and then killing them.
He just wanted to see how it felt, is what he told them. Just want to see how it felt. Well, he happened to tell this to some guys in his barracks the day Karen was found.
So dreams are dreams.
Right.
Now, a lot of people say dreams mean something. I get that. I'm kind of into that. Certain dreams mean certain things.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means if you're dreaming of abducting, killing, sexually assaulting someone. But let's say you had that dream. Would you then go into work the next day and tell everyone about it?
No.
I would keep that one to myself because no matter what it says, it's not good about me.
And to be so specific in the details of that
it matches up exactly to Karen's murder, how it happened,
right,
and the timing.
Yeah.
So doesn't make any sense to tell people that. In 1997, Galbraith was living in his hometown of Rockport, Texas. Rockport authorities arrested him on March 21st, and they held him for 1 week before releasing him on a $50,000 bond. But the bond had no restrictions, which meant that, he could go wherever he wanted. This upset Louisiana officials.
Yeah, it really did. They were not happy about this.
Because they had just started the extradition process. But on April 23rd, Galbraith turned himself in to the Vernon Parish Sheriff on his attorney's advisement versus trying to fight the extradition.
Right.
Over the next 2 years, prosecutors and Galbraith's defense attorney battled over evidence and the credibility of professional witnesses. The start of the trial was delayed twice before eventually being set in 2000.
Yeah, they went back and forth over how all this DNA was tested, the different companies that actually did the testing, how the evidence was handled, and it got kind of ugly for a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's late 90s. DNA's been around for a while, but still, it's not the same as it is today. And even today, there are battles over how testing was done, how evidence was collected. It's just kind of part of the process. But before the trial started in 2000, Galbraith entered a plea deal. So he pleaded guilty to manslaughter and attempted aggravated rape. He received a sentence of 71 years. But by doing so, he avoided the first-degree murder conviction and he avoided the death penalty.
He received credit for the time he was in jail waiting for the trial,
which was about 3 years.
Right.
It took quite a while. But that's still 68 years. But it came out, Gibbs, the state was pretty good with this deal because at some point before the trial, some of the essential DNA evidence was misplaced.
It's a problem.
Yeah, because the defense would have had the right to test it.
Right.
And when the state couldn't produce it, that was going to be a big problem. Louisiana passed a law after Galbraith was convicted that granted first-time felony offenders eligibility for parole at the age of 45 and after serving 20 years of their sentence.
Not sure I like that. I get why they might have passed it and wanted to use it.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this. I'm okay with the eligibility part.
Right.
You still have to go before a parole board. As long as the parole board takes a look at what you did and your behavior since and all that, and they make the right determination, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But Now, as a family member, would you be okay with it? Probably not.
No. And I think the family member should have some weight in that decision too. I get they're always going to be, do not let them out. But I hope that they still take in consideration the family.
Well, I think they do, as long as the family shows up,
Right.
speaks their mind, or they send in some written, communication,
Right.
kind of detailing out why they don't believe this person should get out or how this person has affected their family.
Right.
Now, if you said once you reach age 45 and have served 20 years, you automatically get out. Okay. I got a big problem with that, but
Yeah.
that's not what the law is. But because of this new law, Galbraith was scheduled to be released on parole in April 2017 because he came up for parole and the parole board voted 3-0 in favor of granting his parole. So now maybe I'm changing my mind on what I said, because I said, I hope the parole board takes a look at it. And well, they did. And they said, yeah, we should let this guy out.
Yeah.
And maybe he was a model prisoner. I don't have all that information because I'm sure it was based on good conduct, community service, the fact that he
Participated in different programs.
rehab programs, things like that. They probably also looked at whether or not he had some type of family support structure in place that he could go back to.
Right.
I think they take all of that into account.
Sure. When he leaves here, where's he going? What's he going to be doing?
Yeah, and I think he had that because it said that Galbraith was expected to return to his family's home in Texas. Now, he would be barred from ever entering the state of Louisiana.
Well, that's the way it should be.
He would also be barred from contacting any of Karen's family, and he would technically be on parole until 2032. So he'd have 15 years of parole. And if he did anything wrong and violated that, boom, he's going back.
You go right back. Yep.
So I think that's a good component too. But here's the problem. Karen Hill's family was never made aware of this parole hearing. So they didn't have the opportunity to show up and give impact statements and really say why they feel as though this person should not be released. They went public.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of public outcry from people saying, hey, this isn't right.
I think the prosecutors helped that a little bit too.
I'm sure, because they didn't want him released. They didn't.
Right.
So you've got protests, you've got public outcry. And what it led to was Galbraith's release being rescinded. So this guy was probably told, hey, yep, you won 3-0, you're getting out. And now all of a sudden, no, we're not letting you out.
Yeah, it was just basically 2 days before he was supposed to walk out of the front gate, Hold on, buddy. You're not going anywhere.
But when you really look at it, Gibbs, he didn't even serve a third of his sentence.
Right. And if you calculate in the time that it took between the time he committed the murder and the time that he was arrested, he had a pretty good gap of freedom there too.
Oh, yeah. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
Samuel Galbraith is suing the state of Louisiana for rescinding his parole. As far as I could tell, the suit is still ongoing. But what happened was the detectives in the Vernon Parish Sheriff's cold case team reopened the Pamela Miller and Tammy Call cases. And they started to look at Galbraith as a person of interest in both of these homicides. The women physically resembled one another. They were both young females, reported last seen at convenience stores, and both were found in the woods near Fort Polk. Detectives believe that Galbraith may be connected to their deaths, considering the time frame and the similarities, but Samuel Galbraith has never been charged in either case. The other thing that detectives have said is that they've never seen a case like either one of those, Tammy's or Pamela's, after Galbraith left Fort Polk. So now, does that mean anything? Maybe, maybe not.
Right.
We don't know.
You can probably massage that to however you want that
Sure.
to be, right? Depending on what side you're on.
But I think what you can say is, okay, if you've got a serial killer
Right.
and all of a sudden these killings stop, why? Either the person was incarcerated, they left the area.
Right.
So I see where they're making those kind of connections. The problem is they don't have the evidence to pin either of those murders on Galbraith. I mean, I think they're hoping that advances in DNA will help them do that. But, as of right now, they haven't been able to get the evidence they need.
Right.
But I will say this. The Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office, they have 3 boxes of physical evidence that the FBI collected when Pamela Miller's body was recovered in November 1989. So you have a cold case team who has been diligently reviewing the evidence to decide which pieces to submit for modern DNA testing.
Which is not an easy task, right? I mean, you want to make sure what you submit will bring back the best results.
Yeah, because I think you'd like to think you just throw everything.
Right.
But we know that's not the case. It takes money.
Exactly.
Every piece costs something. DNA testing is not cheap. And so I do think there's a process there to try to determine what is the most viable pieces of evidence to submit. It was reported that up until 2019, the evidence collected had only been subjected to serology testing, which, was pretty standard back in the day.
Right.
Cold case detectives obtained newer DNA from Pamela's family for DNA testing. I think the problem that we had, Gibbs, in researching this piece was that we just couldn't find any further updates on the DNA testing. Now, I'm assuming they haven't linked Galbraith yet, or we would know.
Yeah, I would think so.
But that's pretty common in these unsolved cases. It's really hard to find updates on DNA testing. It's not like detectives are just constantly coming out to the papers and saying, hey, we tested this one.
This is what we got.
This is what we got.
Yeah.
You don't find out until they've got something normally.
And they know where their one main person of interest is right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Right. So I think they're okay with that.
Vernon Parish detectives are interested in speaking with anyone who knew Pamela Miller or Tammy Call. The smallest detail that someone might think is insignificant really could be the key to solving their murder. And I think that's true in a lot of cases.
It really is. Just don't hold back. If you thought you knew or saw anything, just let them know. They'll figure it out if it's important.
And I think sometimes people might believe that they're bothering the police when in reality, they would love to get any information you have. They'll vet it. They'll weed it out.
Sure.
If it turns out not to mean anything, fine. So be it. But it could be the one thing that breaks the case wide open. So anyone with information regarding these 2 cases is asked to call the Vernon Parish County Sheriff's Office at 337-238-7248. So Gibbs, as we wrap up these 2 unsolved cases, as in any unsolved case, right? The families of these victims, they want someone, the person responsible, to be held accountable for their actions. That's what they want. And they want information. They want to know what happened.
Right.
Sometimes
why did you do this?
Yeah. What and why?
Yeah.
I should have said that because I do think that's the part that really probably gnaws it at the family members of victims. Who did it and why did they do it?
Yeah. 'Cause these victims were young. They had their whole lives in front of them.
No, they really did. But I'm very optimistic that, with some of this DNA testing, new technologies, hopefully someday soon, detectives will be able to solve these 2 cases. Maybe it'll be Galbraith. Maybe it'll be somebody else. I don't know.
Hope for the best.
Yep, we always do. But that's it for the unsolved murders of Tammy Call and Pamela Miller. Gibbs, we got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. My name is Michelle, and I live in Buffalo, New York. I'm actually calling on behalf of a friend whose nephew has been missing for the last 8 years. His name is Luke Stout from West Virginia, and his mom has just been was diagnosed with cancer and only has months to live. I'm trying to help her and her family. If there's any way you can cover his case, it might be helpful. If you do a search for Luke Stout in West Virginia, there's a whole bunch that comes up. Thank you so much. I love all of your podcasts. Be safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
Well, that's very sad. And Gibbs, you and I will definitely look into that.
Yeah, it's a long time to be missing, 2012. So I'll look into it. Mike will look into it and see what we can come up with.
So sad that he's missing. And then on top of that, his mother has been diagnosed. I always think it's very sad when a family member doesn't get the opportunity to find out what happened to their loved ones. So yeah, we will definitely research this case and see if there's enough out there that we can put together an episode.
Hello, gentlemen. This is Bellatrix, your lawyer friend from Boston. I have a case suggestion for you. It's the death of Paulette Jabara Farah. It's considered to be the Jean-Benet Ramsey case of Mexico. Little girl who's disabled, disappears in the middle of the night. Her nannies come to wake her up. She's not in bed. Everybody thinks the parents did it because they're so cold. And then days later, maybe like 10 to 2 weeks later, the cops find her body in the bed between her comforter and the foot of the bed. And apparently it had been there the entire time. Like the police went in there, searched everything, took, forensics and evidence and everything, and they apparently missed the actual body that was there. So it's a very strange case. You guys should try covering it. And it's pretty popular, so you'll find tons of articles and information in English. But if you need help, I'm always here. Also, I bought a Get Well card for Mike's daughter, but apparently with USPS, they're in trouble. It hasn't gotten here on time, so it's going to be very delayed. All right, have a good one and keep your own time ticking.
Wow, Gibbs, that case sounds fascinating, and it's not one that I'm really familiar with. So we definitely got to look at that.
It's kind of bizarre that they didn't find the body, but I've done things before where I've looked in my bed for something I lost. I'm like, where is it?
Was it a body? No.
But
I get the remote. Okay, yeah. The remote, that's different.
But this is a body.
We're talking about an entire body.
How do you miss that? Especially if you're in forensics for a local police department.
And I'm pretty sure we got that card. I have to check again, but Bellatrix, I'm pretty sure we got the card. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Allison. I hope you're doing well. I just really wanted to say how truly grateful I am for the both of you and how much what you guys do has helped me. I recently had to say goodbye to my beloved dog, so I've been kind of all wrapped up in my head a lot, and listening to you guys is my escape to keep my mind off of, I guess, the pain and just all the craziness in this world. So I've been listening to you all since last October, and I only recently started Unsolved because I was tentative to listen to those that, were like unresolved. I have to say I'm completely obsessed. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. Your empathy and passion for the stories that you tell, they mean everything, especially to those of us that kind of want to escape. So I just wanted to say thank you. And as always, keep your own time ticking.
Oh, well, we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
And we definitely understand, we love our animals too.
I was going to say, as pet lovers, that's rough. It's one of the hardest things to do. So we feel for you there.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, man? It's Ronaldo calling from Juarez, Mexico. I'm down here on vacation. I'm actually from Kansas City. I'm listening to you guys all the way from Mexico, man. You guys rule, and keep your own time ticking.
All right. He's vacationing in Juarez, Mexico.
There you go.
Have you ever been to Juarez?
I have not been to Juarez.
It's strangely one of the few places in Mexico I've actually been.
Really?
Yeah. I felt like it was very scary. I was a kid, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But I thought Juarez was one of those border towns where They were having a lot of trouble with the drug cartels.
They were. Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
as long as he feels good,
wherever you want to go on vacation, man.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Maybe he's got family there. Who knows?
he could. Yeah. Maybe things have changed there. I don't
But
know.
we appreciate it.
Yeah, it used to be one of those places that you would maybe not want to go to right away.
All right, Gibbs, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.